The emergency alarm screamed through the communication center on New Harmony. Yoon Ji-hai's hands shook as she stared at the readings on her screen. The numbers were impossible. 200 ships were heading straight for their peaceful colony. Elder Kim Dong-woo rushed into the room, his face pale with worry. "What is it, Ji-hai? What's wrong?" "Ships, Elder Kim, many ships. They're not from the Confederation." Ji-hai pointed at her screen. "They're coming fast. They'll be here in 3 days." Kim Dong-woo felt his heart sink. New Harmony was a farming colony on the edge of known space. They had no weapons, no military ships, just families who wanted to grow food and live in peace. "Send a message to the Confederation immediately," he ordered. "Tell them we need help." Ji-hai's fingers flew over the controls. She sent the distress signal on all official channels. Then she waited. And waited. Hours passed with no answer. "Elder Kim," she said quietly. "They're not responding." On the bridge of the lead alien ship, Warlord Vexthul studied the small human colony below. His silicon-based body gleamed under the ship's lights. To him, all carbon-based life was weak and worthless. "How many humans live on this world?" he asked his second-in-command. 50,000, Warlord. They have no military forces. No weapons of any importance." Vexthul smiled, showing crystal teeth. "Perfect. We will give them 3 days to leave. Then we will take their world and strip it clean." Back on New Harmony, panic spread through the colony. Parents held their children close. Farmers looked up at the sky, knowing death was coming from the stars. Kim Dong-woo called another emergency meeting. "The Confederation isn't coming," he told the frightened colonists. "They say our sector isn't important enough to defend." Angry voices filled the room. People shouted questions that had no good answers. How could they fight? Where could they run? Their ships were too slow and too few to save everyone. Young Lee Min-soo, Kim's son, stood up. "What if we try to contact someone else? Anyone who might help?" "Who would come?" asked Mrs. Park, holding her baby. "If the Confederation won't help us, who will?" Ji-hai had been working on the communications equipment all day. "I've been thinking," she said. "What if we boost our signal? Make it stronger than ever before?" "How?" Kim Dong-woo asked. "I can connect all our farming equipment to the main transmitter. Every piece of electronic equipment on the planet." It might work. It was a desperate plan. Ji-hai and Min-soo worked through the night, connecting cables and rerouting power. Other colonists helped however they could. They took apart tractors, mining equipment, even children's toys that had electronic parts. By morning, they had built something that was part desperation and part miracle. A transmitter powerful enough to reach far beyond their small corner of space. "Testing, testing," Ji-hai spoke into the microphone. "This is New Harmony Colony in the Kepler 442 system. We are under attack. 50,000 civilians need immediate help. Please, if anyone can hear this, we have children here. We need help." The message went out on every frequency they could manage. It traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying the fear and hope of an entire world, 15 light-years away. Captain Lee Tae-min was reviewing supply reports on his ship. Thunder's Wrath. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. His ship was on routine patrol, checking trade routes and looking for pirates. "Captain," his communications officer, Han Da-eun, called out. "I'm picking up something strange. It's a distress signal, but it's much stronger than normal." Lee Tae-min walked over to her station. "Let me hear it." The voice that came through the speakers was young and scared. "A girl asking for help, begging for someone to save her people. Where's it coming from?" Lee Tae-min asked. "Kepler 442 system. That's way out on the rim, sir. About 15 light-years from here." Lee Tae-min frowned. "Any Confederation forces in that area?" Han Da-eun checked her records. "No, sir. The Confederation pulled out of that sector 6 months ago, said it wasn't worth defending." On the bridge, the other officers gathered around. Commander Jang Hyun-woo looked at the star charts. "Sir, if there's trouble in that system, it's not really our problem. We're just a single ship." "How many people did she say?" Lee Tae-min asked. 50,000, sir, including children." Lee Tae-min closed his eyes. He thought about his own family back on Earth. His daughter was about the same age as the girl on the radio. "Sir?" Jang Hyun-woo asked. "What are your orders?" Lee Tae-min looked at his crew. Good people, all of them. They had signed up to protect humanity, not just the parts that some politicians thought were important. "Plot a course for Kepler 442, he said quietly. "Sir, we have no orders to go there. If we leave our patrol route without permission, there could be serious trouble. Commander Zhang, did you hear that message? Yes, sir, I did. Then you know what we have to do. Li Taiman's voice grew stronger. We don't abandon our own. Not ever. The crew looked at each other. They all knew what this meant. They could be court-martialed for leaving their assigned patrol. They could lose their careers. But they also knew their captain was right. All hands prepare for jump to hyperspace, Li Taiman announced over the ship's speakers. We have people to save. Thunder's Wrath turned toward the Kepler 442 system and engaged its faster-than-light drive. One human ship racing to help 50,000 people who had nowhere else to turn. On New Harmony, HFY kept broadcasting their message. She didn't know if anyone was listening. She didn't know if help would come. But she kept talking into the darkness, hoping that somewhere, someone cared enough to answer. The alien ships grew closer with each hour. Soon Warlord Vexthal would make his demand. Leave or die. But for the first time in days, HFY felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone had heard their call for help. Captain Li Taiman called his senior officers to the main meeting room. The holographic display showed the Kepler 442 system and the massive enemy fleet approaching New Harmony. Commander Zhang Hyun-woo pointed at the red dots on the screen. 200 ships, Captain. All of them bigger than us. These are Draktar warships. Their plasma weapons can cut through our shields like paper. Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho shook his head. I've read the reports about these aliens. Their ships have energy shields that nothing can get through, and they don't take prisoners. Pilot Kang Soo-jin crossed her arms. So what are you saying? That we should turn around and run? I'm saying we need to be realistic, Jang Hyun-woo replied. We're one ship against 200. The math doesn't work. Li Taiman stayed quiet, studying the data. Dr. Park So-young, their science officer, spoke up. I've been looking at the colony information. New Harmony has 50,000 people. 15,000 of them are children under the age of 16. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. If they turned around and left, those children would die. What about evacuation? Asked Han Do-eun. Can we get the colonists out? Choi Min-ho checked his tablet. Their ships are old cargo haulers and farming vessels. They'd need weeks to evacuate everyone, and they don't have weeks. The Draktar will be there in 36 hours. Li Tae-min finally spoke. What do we have that they don't? Sir? Jang Hyun-woo asked. Our advantages. What makes us different from them? Choi Min-ho thought for a moment. Well, we have the new quantum torpedo systems. And the adaptive shields that can change frequency. Oh, and the Thunder Drive. What's the Thunder Drive again? Kang Soo-jin asked. Experimental short-range jump system. Lets us make tiny hyperspace hops during battle. We can appear, attack, and disappear before they can hit us back. Dr. Park So-young nodded. I've been studying Draktar battle tactics. They fight in large formations. Very organized, very predictable. They expect their enemies to do the same. But we don't fight like that, Li Tae-min said, understanding her point. Exactly. Humans are good at thinking fast and changing plans. We adapt. They follow rules. Jang Hyun-woo still looked worried. Even with our advantages, Captain, the odds are terrible. If we do this, we might all die. Li Tae-min looked at each of his officers. These were good people who had trusted him with their lives. He had no right to ask them to throw those lives away. But he also knew what kind of person he was and what kind of people they were. I want to be clear about something, he said. I'm not ordering anyone to do this. If we go to Kepler 442, we're probably not coming back. This isn't a suicide mission, but it's close. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle to the nearest station. No questions asked. No shame in it, nobody moved. Are you all crazy? He asked with a small smile. Probably, Kang Soo-jin said. But I signed up to protect people, not to play it safe. Han Do-eun nodded. My little brother lives on a colony world. If he called for help, I'd want someone to come. One by one, the officers agreed. They would go to New Harmony. They would face impossible odds. They would try to save 50,000 strangers because it was the right thing to do. All right then, Li Tae-min said. We need a plan. Choi, I want you to modify our weapons. Make them do things they weren't designed to do. Sir, be creative. The Draktar have fought the Confederation forces for years. They know how those ships fight. They don't know how we fight because we're going to make it up as we go. Choi Min-ho's eyes lit up. I have some ideas. What if we link the quantum torpedoes to the Thunder Drive? We could fire them through micro-jumps, make them appear inside their shields. Can you do that? I can try. Give me 12 hours. Dr. Park, I want everything you can find about Draktar biology and technology. Any weakness, any flaw, anything we can use. Already working on it, Captain. Kang, start training the fighter pilots on new attack patterns. Nothing conventional. I want them confused about what we're doing. Yes, sir. Should I tell them what we're really up against? Lee Taemin thought about that. Tell them the truth. They deserve to know. But also tell them that we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human child on that planet. The meeting ended and the officers went to work. All over Thunder's Wrath, crew members prepared for a battle they probably couldn't win. But they worked with determination, not fear. In the engine room, Choi Min-ho and his team took apart perfectly good equipment to build weapons that existed only in their imagination. They connected quantum field generators to hyperspace projectors, creating something that had never been tested. In the science lab, Dr. Park So-young studied every piece of information about the Draktar Empire. She learned about their silicon-based biology, their crystal matrix technology, and their rigid military culture. On the flight deck, Kang Soo-jin taught her pilots to think in 3 dimensions instead of 2. Space wasn't like fighting on a planet's surface. There was no up or down, no left or right. Every direction was a possible attack vector. Han Da-yoon worked with the communications team to create a network that would let them coordinate with the colonists. If they were going to fight for New Harmony, the people there needed to help however they could. As Thunder's Wrath raced toward the battle, Lee Taemin stood alone in his quarters. He looked at a picture of his family and wondered if he would ever see them again. But he also thought about the young woman who had sent the distress signal. She had asked for help and he had answered. That was what humans did. They didn't abandon their own, not ever. The ship's computer announced their arrival in the Kepler 442 system in 6 hours. 6 hours until they would face the largest fleet in Draktar history with nothing but courage, creativity, and the refusal to let innocent people die. Lee Tae-min put the picture away and went back to the bridge. His crew was ready. Their ship was ready. Now they would find out if being human was enough to win a war. Thunder's Wrath dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Lee Taemin stared at the sight before him. The Draktar fleet was enormous. Their ships looked like dark crystals floating in space, each one 3 times larger than his vessel. My God, whispered Commander Jang Hyun-woo. There are so many of them. 212 ships confirmed, Han Da-eun reported. They're in standard battle formation around New Harmony. Lee Taemin activated the communication system. New Harmony Colony, this is Captain Lee Taemin of the Earthship Thunder's Wrath. We received your distress signal. The response came immediately. It was the same young voice from the recording, but now it was filled with disbelief and hope. Captain Lee, you actually came? Oh, thank you so much. What's your name, miss? Yoon-ji-hee, sir. I'm the one who sent the signal. Well done, Ji-hai. Now listen carefully. We're going to help you, but we need your people to help us. Can you connect me with your leader? A new voice came through the speakers. This is Elder Kim Dong-woo. Captain, I don't know how to thank you, but you must understand. There are over 200 enemy ships. You're just one ship. Sometimes one ship is enough, Lee Taemin said. Elder Kim, I need you to organize your people. We're going to use your farming equipment to help us fight. Our farming equipment? But how? Dr. Park So-young took over the communication. Elder Kim, this is Dr. Park. Your tractors, mining machines, and heavy equipment all have metal in them. We can use them to confuse the enemy sensors and create false targets. On the planet below, Kim Dong-woo was confused but hopeful. His son Lee Min-soo was already thinking about the possibilities. Father, if we spread our equipment across the surface and power them up, it might look like we have weapons we don't have. Meanwhile, on the Draktar flagship, Warlord Vexthal was studying the human ship. It was so small compared to his mighty fleet. How could one tiny vessel dare to challenge him? Sub-Commander Thekmore, he called to his second in command. What do you know about this human ship? Thekmore checked his information banks. It appears to be a patrol vessel, Warlord. Lightly armed, designed for reconnaissance. No match for even our smallest warship. Then why is it here? Humans are supposed to be practical. This makes no sense. Perhaps they are here to negotiate our surrender terms? Vexthal laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Send them a message. Tell them they have 1 hour to leave our space or we will destroy them along with the planet. The message reached Thunder's Wrath a few minutes later. Lee Taemin listened to the alien's demands, then smiled grimly. Handa-un. Open a channel to the Draktar flagship. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Lee Taemin to the Draktar fleet. You are threatening innocent civilians. Leave this system immediately or we will remove you by force. The silence that followed was broken by alien laughter. Vexthul couldn't believe what he had heard. One small ship threatening his entire fleet? Human, you must be insane. We have 200 ships. You have one. Yes, Lee Taemin replied calmly. But we have something you don't. What is that? We're human. The communication ended. On both sides, final preparations began. Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho reported to the bridge. Captain, the weapon modifications are complete. We have quantum torpedoes that can phase shift through their shields, and I've connected the Thunder Drive to our targeting system. What does that mean? Asked Kang Soo-jin. It means we can appear anywhere in space, fire our weapons, and disappear before they can hit us back. Like a ghost that can fight. Dr. Park So-young had more good news. I found something in the Draktar biological data. They're silicon-based, which means specific sound frequencies can disrupt their nervous systems. If we can generate the right harmonic patterns, we can turn their own technology against them, Lee Taemin finished. Excellent work, everyone. On New Harmony, the colonists worked frantically to prepare for battle. Lee Min-soo had organized teams to spread equipment across the planet's surface. Every tractor, every mining drill, every piece of electronic equipment was positioned to create sensor signatures that might confuse the enemy. Ji-hai worked with her brother Yoon Sang-woo to create a planet-wide communication network. They connected every radio, every computer, every communication device on New Harmony into one big system. This is amazing, Ji-hai, Sang-woo said as they finished the connections. We can see everything happening in space and relay it to the human ship. Elder Kim Dong-woo watched his people work together. Farmers and engineers, teachers and mechanics all working as one team to defend their home. He felt proud of them, and grateful to the humans who had come to help. The Draktar fleet began to move into attack position. Their formations were perfect, like a textbook example of how space fleets should fight. Warlord Vexthul was confident. This would be over quickly. Then Thunder's wrath simply vanished. Where did it go? Thekmor demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ship appeared directly above the Draktar flagship. At point-blank range, it fired every weapon it had, then disappeared again. Vexthul's ship shook under the impact. Damage reports flooded in. The humans had actually hurt them. Find them! Vexthul roared. All ships, spread out and find that ship. But Thunder's wrath was already gone, appearing on the far side of the fleet. This time it attacked 3 ships at once, using some kind of energy beam that chained from one target to another. Then it vanished again. This is impossible, Thekmor said. Ships can't jump such short distances. Hyperspace doesn't work that way. Apparently human ships do work that way. Vexthul replied grimly. The battle had begun. 1 human ship against 200 alien warships. But for the first time in his career, Warlord Vexthul wasn't certain he would win. These humans didn't fight like any enemy he had ever faced. They appeared, struck, and vanished like phantoms. They used tactics that made no sense, weapons that shouldn't exist, and a determination that seemed to defy logic itself. The art of war, as humans understood it, was about to teach the Draktar Empire a lesson they would never forget. The space around New Harmony had become a storm of light and death. Thunder's wrath appeared and disappeared like a deadly ghost, striking the Draktar fleet from impossible angles. Captain Lee Taemin stood on his bridge, coordinating the attack with calm precision. Jump point 7 Alpha, he ordered. Fire quantum torpedoes, then immediate withdrawal. The ship vanished and reappeared behind a group of enemy cruisers. Choi Min-ho's modified weapons phased right through their shields and exploded inside their hulls. 3 alien ships died in bright flashes before Thunder's wrath disappeared again. Incredible, Han De-yoon called out. The colonists are reporting 17 enemy ships destroyed, 23 damaged. But the victory came with a price. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. Hull breach on Deck 4, reported Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo from the Marine section. The Thunder Drive is overheating. We can't keep this up much longer. Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho wiped sweat from his forehead. Captain, I'm pushing the engines beyond their limits. The quantum field generators are starting to fail. On New Harmony, Ji-hai and her brother Sang-woo watched the battle through their improvised sensor network. The human ship was fighting like nothing they had ever seen, but it was taking damage. "Look at this," Sang-woo pointed at his screen. "The big alien ships are changing formation. They're trying to surround the human ship." Ji-hai opened her communication channel. "Thunder's Wrath, this is Ji-hai. The enemy fleet is moving into a cage pattern. They want to trap you." Lee Taemin's voice came back immediately. "Thank you, Ji-hai, we see it. Tell your people to get ready for Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? She asked. "You'll know when you see it." On the Draktar flagship, Warlord Vexthal was furious. His perfect fleet formation was in ruins. The human ship kept appearing where it wasn't supposed to be, doing things that should have been impossible. "Sub-Commander Thekmore, how many ships have we lost?" 21 destroyed, 34 damaged, Warlord. But we're learning their patterns. They can't keep jumping forever. Vexthal studied the tactical display. "Begin orbital bombardment of the planet. If we can't catch this ship, we'll force it to come to us." The largest Draktar ships turned their massive weapons toward New Harmony. Energy beams began raining down from space, turning forests into fire and farmland into glass. On the planet's surface, Elder Kim Dong-woo watched his world burning. "Captain Lee," he called desperately, "they're destroying everything." Lee Taemin faced the hardest decision of his life. He could continue hit-and-run attacks, but the planet would be destroyed while he fought. Or he could move to protect New Harmony directly, which would make Thunder's Wrath an easy target. "All hands prepare for defensive pattern Omega," he announced. "We're going to shield the planet." Thunder's Wrath appeared directly above New Harmony's main city, spreading its shield generators to protect the people below. But this meant the ship couldn't jump away. It was trapped, taking the full force of the alien attack. Explosions rocked the ship. The lights flickered. Damage reports flooded in from every section. "Shields at 30%, Jang Hyun-woo reported. "Hull breaches on 6 decks, Oh Kyung-soo added. Dr. Park So-young looked up from her science station. "Captain, I have an idea. The harmonic frequency I discovered. What if we broadcast it through the planet's communication network?" "What would that do?" "It might disrupt the Draktar nervous systems. Make them sick, confused. Buy us time. Do it." Dr. Park worked frantically with Ji-hai on the planet below. They connected the harmonic generator to every radio tower, every communication dish, every electronic device on New Harmony. "Broadcasting now," Ji-hai reported. The effect was immediate. On Draktar ships throughout the fleet, silicon-based aliens began writhing in pain. The specific frequency attacked their neural networks like a virus, making it impossible to think clearly or coordinate their attacks. But the victory was short-lived. Warlord Vexthal, protected in his shielded command center, ordered his ships to retreat beyond the harmonic field's range and continue bombardment from a distance. Thunder's Wrath was badly damaged and couldn't pursue. Lee Taemin looked at his crew, these brave people who had followed him into certain death to save strangers. "Sir," Han Da-eun said quietly, "I'm receiving a priority communication from Earth Fleet Command. Put it through." The face of Admiral Pak Young-jae appeared on the main screen. "Captain Lee, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "Saving lives, sir. You abandoned your patrol route without orders. You've engaged an enemy fleet without authorization. This is grounds for court-martial." Lee Taemin stood straight despite his exhaustion. "Admiral, 50,000 civilians called for help." We answered. "If that's wrong, then I'll face the consequences." Admiral Pak was quiet for a moment. Behind him, other officers whispered urgently. Finally, he spoke again. "Captain Lee, your actions have created a political crisis. The Confederation is demanding we withdraw and apologize to the Draktar Empire. And what is Earth's response to that demand?" The Admiral almost smiled. "Earth's response, Captain, is currently traveling toward your position at maximum speed. Try to stay alive for another 6 hours." The communication ended. Lee Taemin looked at his crew with new hope. "You heard the Admiral. Help is coming. We just need to hold out a little longer." But the Draktar weren't finished. As Thunder's Wrath struggled to repair its systems, enemy sensors detected new hyperspace signatures approaching the system. "More ships coming," Thekmore reported. 37 vessels. They're Draktar." Warlord Kethzan's fleet arrived in perfect formation. Kethzan was Vexthal's greatest rival, and he had come to claim the victory that Vexthal couldn't achieve alone. "Brother Vexthal," came the mocking communication. "I heard you needed help with one small human ship." Vexthal's rage burned like plasma. This is my conquest, Kethzan. Take your ships and leave. The High Command sent me to ensure success. Now we have over 250 ships. Even the humans cannot fight those odds. On New Harmony, Ji-Hai watched the new alien ships arrive and felt her heart sink. Captain Lee, there are more of them now. So many more. Lee Taemin's voice came back, calm and determined as ever. Ji-Hai, I want you to remember something. We came here because someone called for help. We stayed because it was right. And now we're going to finish this because that's what humans do. Thunder's Wrath rose from its protective position above the planet. The ship was damaged, her crew was exhausted, but they weren't defeated. Not while there were people counting on them to fight. The real battle was about to begin. And somewhere in hyperspace, Earth's answer to the crisis was racing toward New Harmony at the speed of light. Thunder had been unleashed. Now it was time to see what happened when Thunder called its brothers home. Thunder's Wrath was dying. Sparks flew from damaged control panels as Captain Lee Taemin prepared for what might be his final battle. The combined Draktar fleets had formed a perfect sphere around New Harmony, with over 250 ships ready to destroy anything that moved. Captain, Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho reported, the Thunder drive is completely offline. We have maybe 6 quantum torpedoes left and our shields are running on emergency power. Commander Jang Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display with grim determination. If we're going to make a final attack, sir, now would be the time. Before they get organized, Lee Taemin nodded. He opened a channel to the entire ship. All hands, this is the captain. We came here to save innocent people. We've done our best and we've shown these aliens that humans don't abandon their own. If this is our last fight, then we'll make it count. On the planet below, Ji-Hai watched through her sensors as Thunder's Wrath began its final attack run toward the enemy flagship. She knew the brave humans who had answered her call were about to die, and tears ran down her face. Thank you, she whispered into her microphone. Thank you for coming. Warlord Vexthul smiled as he watched the damaged human ship approaching. Finally, they will die with honor. All ships prepare to fire on my command. But before he could give the order, space itself seemed to tear open. The first ship to emerge from hyperspace was massive, 3 times larger than any Draktar vessel. The UES Righteous Fury led a fleet of 300 human warships into the Kepler 442 system. Their arrival created a storm of energy that lit up the darkness. This is Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-wook of the Earth Deep Space Fleet, came the broadcast on all frequencies. Any hostile forces in this system have 30 seconds to surrender or be destroyed. On Thunder's Wrath, the crew stared in amazement. Captain Nam Seok-jin's voice came over their communication system. Thunder's Wrath, this is Captain Nam of the EDF Stalwart. Stand down and let us take over. You've done enough. Lee Taemin felt relief wash over him. Negative, Captain Nam, we started this fight. We'll help you finish it. Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-wook's voice boomed across space. Draktar fleet, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Warlord Kethzan, always arrogant, responded with typical alien pride. We do not fear you, humans. We are the Draktar Empire. We do not retreat. Then you will learn why that's a mistake, Shin Jae-wook replied. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, using tactics that the Draktar had never seen before. Ships appeared and disappeared using advanced jump drives. Weapons that bent space and time tore through alien hulls like paper. Captain Nam Seok-jin led the carrier groups in complex maneuvers that made Thunder's Wrath's earlier attacks look simple. Fighter squadrons swarmed between the larger ships, striking weak points with surgical precision. Colonel Bae In-soo's Marines boarded damaged Draktar vessels, proving that humans were just as deadly in close combat as they were in space battles. The aliens learned that humans could fight in any environment against any odds, but the real shock came when more ships arrived. The Galactic Confederation fleet, led by various alien species, dropped out of hyperspace with perfect timing, just after the battle was decided. This is Admiral Korthek of the Confederation fleet, came the pompous announcement. We claim jurisdiction over this engagement under Confederation law. Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-wook's response became legendary throughout the galaxy. Our people called for help. We answered. Your authority ends where your courage failed to begin. The words hit like a physical blow. Every species in the Confederation knew it was true. They had abandoned the human colony when it needed help most. On New Harmony, the colonists watched in wonder as the human fleet systematically dismantled the Draktar Empire's finest warships. Elder Kim Dong-woo stood with his son Lee Min-soo and looked up at the sky. They came, Min-soo said in amazement. All of them came. Because one ship answered our call, Kim Dong-woo replied. One captain who refused to let us die alone. Ji-hye was crying again, but these were tears of joy. Her desperate message had not only saved her people, it had brought the entire human fleet across the galaxy to protect strangers they had never met. The battle turned into a rout. Warlord Vexthul's flagship was surrounded by human ships, its weapons disabled, its crew defeated. Warlord Kethazan tried to retreat, but Captain Nam's forces cut off his escape route. Surrender now, Lee Tae-min broadcast to both Draktar commanders, or we will finish what you started. For the first time in their history, Draktar warlords surrendered to an enemy. Their proud empire had met an opponent they couldn't understand, couldn't predict, and couldn't defeat. As the alien fleets limped away under human escort, Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-wook opened a private channel to Thunder's wrath. Captain Lee, your actions have created quite a stir back home. Some politicians want to court-martial you for disobeying orders. Lee Tae-min was too tired to care about politics. I understand, Admiral. However, Shin Jae-wook continued, President Han Min-jung has a different view. She's declaring the formation of the Human Colonial Defense Pact. Any human settlement that calls for help will receive it, regardless of distance or political approval. The meaning was clear. Never again would human colonies be abandoned to face extinction alone. There's something else, Captain. Your battle recordings have been broadcast throughout the galaxy. Do you know what other species are calling you? Lee Tae-min smiled tiredly. I'm almost afraid to ask. Thunder Warriors. They're saying humans are the species that fights impossible battles and wins them through pure determination. As Thunder's wrath docked with the fleet's repair ships, Lee Tae-min looked at his crew. They had faced impossible odds and survived. More importantly, they had saved 50,000 innocent people from certain death. Sir, Honda-un called from her station. I'm receiving multiple communication requests. Other colonies, other species. They all want to know if humans will help them too. Lee Tae-min thought about that. Maybe this was just the beginning. Maybe humanity's role in the galaxy was to be the ones who answered when others called for help. Tell them we'll consider each request, he said. But remind them of something important. What's that, sir? When thunder calls, thunder answers. And we are the thunder. The grand chamber of the Galactic Coalition stretched across 3 kilometers of crystalline light. Representatives from over 900 species filled the vast space, their forms ranging from floating gas clouds to massive stone beings. At the center of it all, the human delegation sat quietly in their simple gray uniforms. Admiral Chen Rodriguez watched the proceedings with dark, tired eyes. She had served the coalition for 23 years, leading Earth's small fleet of hospital ships and medical frigates. Her people had earned their reputation honestly. Humans were the best healers in the known galaxy. The Krath ambassador was speaking now, his 6 arms gesturing dramatically. The Krath were an insectoid species, each one standing over 2 meters tall with black chitinous armor. They were warriors, proud and aggressive. They respected strength and viewed compassion as weakness. The Krath dominion expands because we are strong. The ambassador clicked through his translator. Lesser species should accept our guidance, the other delegates murmured. Some species agreed, others protested. The coalition had kept peace for 3,000 years through careful diplomacy and strict rules. The most sacred rule was simple. Healers were untouchable. Medical personnel, hospital ships, and aid stations were neutral ground. Every species respected this law. Rodriguez shifted in her seat. Next to her, Captain James Park leaned close and whispered, They're testing boundaries again. She nodded. The Krath had been pushing harder each year. Small violations, territory disputes, aggressive expansion, but they had never crossed the line. Not yet. The Human Medical Corps served on 47 worlds. They ran hospitals, trained local doctors, and responded to disasters. Other species considered this work beneath them. Warriors fought. Traders bargained. Healers just cleaned up afterward. But humans seemed to love the work. They smiled at patients. They held dying hands. They wept when they lost someone. The galaxy thought humans were soft. Rodriguez remembered the questions during Earth's admission interview 50 years ago. The Coalition Council had asked about human history. Earth's representatives had been vague. They spoke of wars long past. They mentioned conflicts that taught humans the value of peace. They promised that humanity had learned its lessons. What they did not mention were the details. The Coalition never asked to see Earth's military archives. They never questioned why humans had so few soldiers. They never wondered where humanity's warships had gone. The session ended. Rodriguez stood and stretched. Her back ached. She was 61 years old and had spent most of her life in space. She had joined Earth's Navy when she was 18 back in the bad old days. She had seen things, done things. But that was before the Coalition. Before humanity decided to change. Admiral, a young ensign, approached nervously. Message from Refuge 7 Medical Corps Headquarters. Rodriguez took the datapad. Refuge 7 was a farming colony at the edge of Coalition space. Peaceful, safe. The humans had built a massive hospital there, serving refugees from 3 sectors. Over 2,000 human doctors and nurses worked there. The facility treated 15,000 patients at any given time. She read the message, then read it again. Captain Park saw her face. "What's wrong?" Rodriguez could not speak. She handed him the datapad. The Krath had attacked Refuge 7. They had targeted the hospital complex specifically, orbital bombardment followed by ground assault. The facility was destroyed. Initial reports suggested total casualties. Park's hands shook. They killed healers. They broke the oldest law. Other delegates were receiving similar reports. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had existed for millennia, that had never known such barbarism, could not comprehend what had happened. The Krath ambassador stood calmly. "A military error," he clicked. "Unfortunate. The Dominion will pay appropriate compensation." Rodriguez felt something cold settle in her chest. She had not felt this feeling in 40 years. Not since the last time she wore a different uniform. Not since she commanded weapons instead of hospital ships. The Coalition Council called for emergency hearings. They demanded investigations. They proposed sanctions. Every species shouted their outrage. Only the humans were silent. Rodriguez requested a private channel to Earth. The connection took 3 minutes to establish. When it opened, she saw Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen on the screen. Sarah was her younger sister. The family resemblance was clear. "You saw the report," Sarah said quietly. "Yes. The President wants options." Rodriguez closed her eyes. "Tell her we have them. Tell her to open the vaults." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Chen, are you certain?" "Once we start down this path, and they killed our healers, Sarah. They broadcast it. They're proud of it. The Coalition will object. Let them." Rodriguez opened her eyes. They were hard now. Ancient. "We gave them 50 years of medicine. 50 years of saving lives. We showed them the best of what we could be. Now they'll see what we used to be." The connection ended. Rodriguez returned to the council chamber. The debate continued. Species argued about proper responses. They discussed economic pressure and diplomatic isolation. They debated for hours. Finally, the human delegate stood. Ambassador Michael Torres was a small man with gray hair and gentle eyes. He had been a surgeon before becoming a diplomat. "The Coalition's response is appreciated," Torres said softly. "But humanity will handle this matter ourselves." The chamber fell silent. Several delegates looked confused. Humans did not handle matters. Humans healed. Humans helped. Humans were peaceful. "We formally request that Coalition forces stay clear of Krath space," Torres continued. "For the next 60 days. For your own safety." The Krath ambassador laughed. "You threaten us? You who serve at the hospital? You who cry when patients die?" Torres looked at him. For just a moment his gentle expression slipped. Something else showed through. Something that had been hidden for decades. "We're not threatening you," Torres said quietly. "We're warning the others to stay away." Rodriguez prepared to leave for Earth. As she walked through the corridors of the Coalition station, she passed the memorial wall. The names of every species' heroes were carved there. The humans had only one section. It listed the medical personnel who had died in service. Over 300 names across 50 years. All of them had died in accidents or from diseases they tried to cure. Now there would be more names. Many more, from Refuge 7. But those names would not stand alone. Rodriguez reached her ship. The transport was ready to take her home. Earth was mobilizing. For the first time in 50 years, humanity was going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had become healers in the first place. It was not because they did not know how to fight. It was because they knew exactly how to fight, and they had seen where that path led. But some acts could not stand. Some violations demanded response. The Krath had attacked healers. They had killed those who saved lives. They had broken the oldest, most sacred law of civilization. Earth sent a message to the Krath homeworld. It was simple. Just 7 words. You have declared war on mercy itself. The galaxy would soon understand what that meant. Dr. Sarah Kim had been changing bandages when the alarm started. She looked up from her patient, a young Vreni child with 3 broken limbs. The child's parents had died in a transport accident. Sarah had spent 6 hours in surgery saving the little one's life. The hospital's defensive shields activated. Red lights flashed. Sarah heard the distant thunder of explosions. Stay calm, she told the child. Her translator converted the words to soothing clicks. We're safe here. Hospitals are protected. Then the ceiling exploded. The Krath bombardment was precise. Orbital weapons targeted the medical wings first. The maternity ward, the intensive care units, the surgical theaters, places where patients could not flee. Sarah grabbed the child and ran. The corridor collapsed behind her. She could hear screaming in 17 different languages. The translator in her ear could not keep up. She reached the emergency shelter. Other staff were already there, along with patients who could move. A Krath soldier appeared in the doorway. He raised his weapon. Sarah put herself between the soldier and the children. She raised her hands, showing the red cross symbol on her uniform, the universal sign of healers. The soldier shot her anyway. She fell. As her vision faded, she saw the children die. All of them. The soldier was methodical, efficient. He made sure no one survived. Her last thought was confusion. Why would anyone do this? 3 sectors away, Admiral Rodriguez received the detailed reports. The Krath had not simply attacked the hospital. They had live-streamed it. Propaganda footage showed their soldiers executing wounded patients. Images showed burning medical wings. Audio recordings captured screams. The Krath wanted the galaxy to see. They wanted everyone to know that the rules no longer applied. That the strong could do whatever they wished. That mercy was for the weak. 15,000 patients died. 2,000 human medical personnel were killed. Doctors, nurses, technicians, orderlies. People whose only weapons were scalpels and medicine. The youngest victim was 3 days old. A human infant born premature, still in an incubator. The oldest was Ambassador Kira, a Vreni diplomat who was 147 years old. She had been recovering from heart surgery. They killed them all. The Galactic Coalition Emergency Council met within hours. Every species sent representatives. The evidence was clear. The Krath had committed an act so barbaric that many species had no words for it. Some of the older races had forgotten such things were even possible. The debate lasted for days. What should be done? Economic sanctions? Diplomatic isolation? Military intervention? The problem was simple. The coalition had no real military. They had peacekeepers, police forces, but they had not fought a war in 3 millennia. Their weapons were museum pieces. Their tactics were theoretical. Their soldiers were security guards who checked identification. The Krath knew this. They counted on it. We will pay reparations, the Krath ambassador announced. A suitable amount for the error. Error. He called it an error. The human delegate sat silently through it all. Ambassador Torres did not argue, did not protest. He simply watched and took notes. On the 3rd day, Torres requested to speak. The council granted permission. The Galactic Coalition has shown remarkable restraint, Torres began. His voice was calm, professional. The debate has been thoughtful and thorough. Humanity appreciates the support many species have offered. He paused. Some delegates nodded, pleased that the humans understood. However, Earth must decline the Coalition's assistance in this matter. Silence fell across the chamber. We will handle the Krath situation ourselves, Torres continued. We ask only that Coalition vessels stay clear of Krath space for the next 60 standard days. This is for your protection, not theirs. The Vreni delegate stood. His species had lost over 3,000 patients in the attack. Ambassador Torres, we understand your grief, but humanity lacks the military capacity for such action. You operate hospital ships and medical transports. How can you possibly? We have sufficient resources, Torres interrupted gently. Trust me when I say that Earth is quite capable of handling this, the Krath ambassador laughed. It was a harsh clicking sound. You send doctors to fight warriors. You send nurses to battle soldiers. Humans accept reality. You are healers. You are soft. You are weak. The strong dominate. This is the natural order. Torres turned to face the Krath delegate. His expression remained pleasant, but his eyes were cold. You destroyed a hospital, Torres said quietly. You killed healers. You murdered patients. You broadcast it as propaganda. You wanted the galaxy to see what happens when someone challenges you. Yes, the Krath clicked proudly. Now all will know the price of opposing the Dominion. No, Torres corrected. Now all will know what happens when someone makes humanity remember why we became healers in the first place. The statement made no sense to most delegates, but a few of the oldest species exchanged glances. They had read Earth's admission files more carefully than others. They had noticed the gaps in human history, the missing records from the 21st and 22nd centuries, the careful silence about humanity's wars. Earth's president addressed the coalition later that day via broadcast. President Maria Santos was 70 years old. She had been a battlefield surgeon in her youth. Before the change. Before humanity put away its weapons. To our friends in the Galactic Coalition, she began. Humanity thanks you for 50 years of peace. You welcomed us. You trusted us. You gave us the chance to show the best parts of our nature. We will always be grateful. She paused. Her expression hardened. But to the Krath Dominion we say this. You have attacked healers. You have murdered those who save lives. You have violated every law of civilized behavior. We gave you one chance to surrender. We sent a warning. You ignored it. Another pause. Earth is now mobilizing. We are opening archives that have been sealed for 5 decades. We are activating protocols that we swore never to use again. We are waking people who we hoped would sleep forever. The broadcast ended. Within hours, Coalition intelligence reported unusual activity around Earth. Ships were launching from hidden stations. Facilities deep underground were coming online. Most disturbing were the reports from Earth's lunar colonies. Someone was opening the cryogenic vaults. The Krath Dominion dismissed the threats. They had scanned human space. Earth had 12 small ships, hospital vessels and transports, nothing that could threaten the Dominion's 1,000-ship fleet. What the Krath did not know was that humans were very good at hiding things. And Earth had spent 50 years building weapons they prayed they would never use. Admiral Rodriguez stood in front of the monument on the moon. It was a simple black wall with names carved in white stone. Over 1 million names. Every human who had died in Earth's last war. The war that almost destroyed humanity. The war that taught them to choose a different path. I'm sorry, she whispered to the names. We tried. We really tried to be better. Behind her, engines roared. The first of Earth's warships lifted off. They did not look like coalition vessels. They were angular, aggressive, built for one purpose only. The message had been sent to the Krath. Now Earth would deliver it personally. The Krath had wanted to show the galaxy what strength looked like. They had wanted to prove that mercy was weakness. They had wanted to demonstrate that the strong could do whatever they wished. They were about to learn the difference between strength and cruelty, between warriors and killers, between civilization and barbarism, and most importantly, they were about to learn that the reason humanity became healers was not because they could not fight. It was because they knew how to fight so well that they terrified themselves. The galaxy was watching, and Earth was done hiding. The vault was located 3 kilometers beneath the lunar surface. Admiral Rodriguez walked through corridors that had not seen visitors in 50 years. Her footsteps echoed in the darkness. Behind her, a small team of technicians worked to restore power. The blast doors were 5 meters thick. They were designed to survive orbital bombardment, even nuclear strikes. These doors were not meant to keep people out. They were meant to keep something in. Rodriguez placed her hand on the scanner. It took several minutes for the ancient system to verify her credentials. Finally, lights turned green. The doors groaned. Slowly, they began to open. Inside, rows of cryogenic pods stretched into the darkness. Thousands of them. Each one contained a person. Not volunteers. Not heroes. These were the ones humanity had chosen to lock away. War criminals. Mass murderers. The architects of atrocities. The men and women who had brought Earth to the edge of destruction. Rodriguez walked past the pods reading names. General Viktor Komarov, who had ordered the nerve gas attacks on Moscow. Colonel Sarah Hughes, who had designed the autonomous kill drones. Dr. James Chen, who had created the genetic plague. Admiral William Stone, who had bombarded Paris. These were not soldiers. These were monsters, and humanity had kept them frozen rather than execute them. Just in case the galaxy ever needed to see what humans could become when they stopped holding back. The first pod was opening. The man inside was old, gray-haired, with a scarred face. General Konstantin Volkov. He had led the Siberian campaign, a 3-year war that killed 17 million people. His tactics had been so brutal that his own government arrested him. Volkov's eyes opened. He took a gasping breath. Medical staff rushed forward with oxygen and stimulants. It took several minutes for him to focus. "Where am I?" he croaked. "The moon," Rodriguez answered. 53 years have passed since you were frozen." Volkov looked around. Recognition slowly returned to his eyes. "The war. Did we win? We nearly destroyed ourselves. Both sides lost. That's why you're here." Volkov sat up slowly. His body was weak from decades of sleep. "Then why wake me? The council promised I would stay frozen unless—" He stopped. Understanding dawned. Someone started another war. "Not us," Rodriguez said. "An alien species called the Krath. They attacked a hospital, killed 2,000 medical personnel, 15,000 patients, mostly civilians. They broadcast it as propaganda." Volkov was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "You became healers. Humanity became doctors and nurses. How wonderful. How noble. And now someone killed your healers and you don't know what to do." "We know exactly what to do," Rodriguez said coldly. "That's why you're being woken up." Volkov stopped laughing. "I see, you want my expertise. The Krath have 1,000 ships. They control 17 star systems. They have 3 billion soldiers. And they think humans are soft, are you? That's what we're about to find out." Over the next week, more pods opened. 50 in total, 50 of humanity's worst. Each one was given the same choice. Help humanity fight this war, or go back to sleep forever. Every single one of them chose to fight. The galaxy watched in horror as Earth's preparations continued. Coalition observers reported what they saw. Weapons that had been illegal for 3,000 years were being built. Ships designed for pure destruction. Chemical weapons. Biological weapons. Nuclear weapons. The Vreni ambassador confronted Torres. "You cannot use such things. The Coalition banned them millennia ago." "The Coalition banned them for Coalition members," Torres replied. "Earth never signed those treaties. We simply chose not to build such weapons. Now we're choosing differently. This is madness. You will destroy yourselves again, perhaps. But the Krath will definitely be destroyed first." Earth's museums were emptied. Tanks that had sat in glass cases were refurbished. Fighter jets that had been historical displays were made flight-ready. Submarines that had decorated parks were launched. Every weapon humanity had ever built was brought out of retirement. But the ships were the most disturbing. Coalition sensors detected vessels emerging from hidden stations throughout the solar system. These ships did not have medical bays or passenger quarters. They had gun decks, missile batteries, energy weapons, armor plating. Earth had built these ships 50 years ago. Just in case, they had hidden them away, hoping never to use them. But they had kept them maintained, ready, waiting. Now they launched. 60 warships, not large by galactic standards. But they moved differently than Coalition vessels. They were fast, aggressive, predatory, and they were crewed by humans who remembered how to fight. General Volkov stood on the bridge of the ESS Retribution. He wore a human military uniform again. It felt strange after so many years, but also familiar, comfortable. "Status report," he ordered. The tactical officer responded. "All weapon systems online. Nuclear arsenal at full capacity. Biological weapons ready for deployment. Chemical weapons standing by. Conventional weapons loaded and ready." Volkov nodded. He looked at the star map. The Krath Dominion was marked in red. 17 systems. 3 billion people. 1,000 ships. They think they're warriors, Volkov said quietly. They think because they fight, they understand war. But war is not about fighting. War is about breaking the enemy's will, making them wish they had never been born, making them beg for mercy. He turned to the crew. Young humans, all volunteers. They had been born after Earth's last war. They had grown up in the age of healing. They did not understand what he understood. Not yet. In the old days, we fought each other, Volkov said. Human against human. We knew each other's limits. We knew when to stop. But the Krath don't know our limits. They think we're soft. They think mercy is weakness, he smiled. It was not a kind smile. We're going to teach them that humans learned mercy the hard way. We learned it by discovering exactly how much damage we could do. We learned it by going too far. We learned it by becoming monsters. The ship's engines flared. They were ready to launch. The Krath killed healers. They attacked the people we sent to save lives. They destroyed the best of what we became. So now they'll meet the worst of what we were. Back on Earth, President Santos addressed the planet. To all citizens of Earth, we are going to war. This is not a choice we wanted. This is not a path we hope to walk again. But the galaxy must understand that there are lines that cannot be crossed. She paused, looking directly at the camera. We became healers because we knew the alternative. We chose mercy because we understood cruelty. We saved lives because we knew how easily they could be taken. The Krath have reminded us of what we left behind, so we will remind them why we left it behind in the first place. The broadcast ended. In the coalition chambers, delegates watched in stunned silence as Earth's fleet moved toward Krath space. The ships broadcasted their payload manifests as they traveled. Nuclear weapons, biological agents, chemical weapons. Every horror humanity had ever created. The Krath fleet moved to intercept. They outnumbered the humans 20-1. They were confident, proud, ready to crush this upstart species that dared challenge them. The two fleets met at the border of Krath space. The Krath admiral sent a message demanding surrender. The human admiral responded with a single word. No. The battle began, and the galaxy learned that there was a reason humanity had been so desperate to forget how to fight. It was because they had been too good at it, too efficient, too creative in finding ways to hurt each other. The Krath thought they understood war. They thought their 1,000 victories proved their strength. They were about to discover that humans had spent centuries fighting themselves. And there was no enemy more dangerous than someone who had already faced the worst they could become. The first battle lasted 18 minutes. The Krath fleet moved into standard formation. 60 capital ships supported by hundreds of smaller vessels. Their admiral had fought in 40 campaigns. He had conquered 12 worlds. He knew what he was doing. The human fleet did not follow any pattern the Krath recognized. They moved like a swarm, like predators circling prey. Their ships were smaller, but they moved faster than anything the Krath had seen. The Krath admiral gave the order to fire. Energy weapons lit up the void. Missiles streaked across space. The human fleet scattered, not retreating, dodging. They moved like they knew where every shot would go before it was fired. Then the humans fired back. The Krath flagship took 3 nuclear missiles in rapid succession. The shields held against the first 2. The third went through. The explosion was clean, efficient. When the light faded, the flagship was gone. Just debris and radiation. The human fleet broadcast a message on all Krath frequencies. It was footage from Refuge 7, the hospital burning, patients dying, medical personnel being executed. The humans had added subtitles, simple text that repeated over and over, "You did this. This is what you chose." The psychological warfare began. General Volkov coordinated the campaign from the ESS Retribution. He had done this before. Broken armies, destroyed morale, made enemies fear the darkness. The Krath thought they were warriors, but they had never faced an enemy like this. "Target their communication relays," Volkov ordered. "I want every Krath world to see what happens next." The human ships moved deeper into Krath space. They avoided major military installations. Instead, they targeted infrastructure. Power plants, water treatment facilities, agricultural stations, not to destroy them, to disable them. Each attack came with a message. This is what we could have done to the hospital. We chose not to. You chose differently. The Krath military scrambled to respond. They sent fleets to defend key systems. But the humans were never where the Krath expected. They hit targets that seemed random. A mining colony here, a trade station there, a communications hub somewhere else. It took the Krath 3 days to realize the pattern. The humans were not attacking randomly. They were destroying supply lines. Every target had been chosen to disrupt the Krath war machine. Food shipments stopped. Fuel deliveries failed. Medical supplies ran out. The human fleet had not destroyed a single civilian population. But they had made life uncomfortable for billions of Krath. And then the ghost arrived. No one knew his real name. The files just called him Subject 17. He had been frozen for his crimes during the Pacific conflict. He had been a special operations commander. His speciality was terror. The ghost took a small team and infiltrated the Krath homeworld. They did not attack military targets. Instead, they broadcast messages. Short videos that appeared on every Krath screen. The first message showed a Krath government building. Empty. At night. The camera moved through the corridors, past security systems that had been disabled. It entered the council chamber where the Krath leaders met. The camera focused on the Prime Minister's chair. A single human helmet sat there. The message was clear. We can reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. The second message was worse. It showed the Prime Minister's private residence. His bedroom. His sleeping form. The camera moved close enough to touch him. Then it pulled back and disappeared. The Prime Minister had not known anyone was there until he saw the video the next morning. The Krath military tried to find the ghost. They locked down the homeworld. They scanned every street. They questioned millions of citizens. They found nothing, but the messages kept coming. Each one showing how easily humans could reach the highest levels of Krath society. The ghost never hurt anyone. That was the most terrifying part. He just proved that he could, that humans could kill any Krath leader whenever they wanted. They simply chose not to. Yet, meanwhile, Admiral Rodriguez commanded the main fleet. They engaged Krath military vessels when necessary. The battles were brief and brutal. The humans fought with a precision that shocked the Krath. They knew where to hit, how to hurt, when to withdraw. Krath soldiers began to break. They had been taught that they were superior warriors, that other species were weak, but humans fought like nothing they had encountered. Humans used tactics that seemed impossible. They appeared from nowhere. They struck without warning. They disappeared before reinforcements arrived. And they never stopped broadcasting the footage from Refuge 7. Every Krath soldier saw what their leaders had ordered. Every Krath civilian watched their military murder helpless patients. The humans made sure everyone knew what started this war. Dissent began to spread through the Krath Dominion. Some called for peace. Others demanded their leaders surrender. The military tried to suppress the protests, but the humans had made sure the truth was everywhere. On Earth, President Santos monitored the campaign. Coalition observers were embedded with human forces. They sent reports back to their governments. The reports all said the same thing. Humans were winning, but not the way anyone expected. They are not conquering worlds, the Vreni observer reported. They are destroying the Krath ability to wage war. They are showing mercy where possible and overwhelming force when necessary. They are fighting as if they have done this 1,000 times before. The observer paused before adding, because they have done this before. To themselves, General Volkov met with his command staff. They reviewed the progress. The Krath fleet was down to 600 ships. Their supply lines were broken. Their morale was crumbling. The war could end within weeks. We could finish this quickly, one officer suggested. Hit their remaining military bases. Force a surrender. Volkov shook his head. No, that would be too kind. They killed healers. They murdered patients. They need to understand what that means. They need to learn why the galaxy made such acts unthinkable. He pulled up a map of the Krath Dominion. 17 systems. 3 billion people. All of them watching as their military collapsed. We show them what war really is, Volkov continued. Not glory. Not honor. Not strength. Just suffering. Slowly, methodically until they beg us to stop. Until they understand that humans became healers because we know exactly how much pain we can inflict. The campaign continued. The humans moved from system to system. They did not occupy worlds. They did not demand tribute. They simply made it impossible for the Krath to fight back. And they kept broadcasting the same message. This is what happens when you attack healers. The Krath tried everything. They called for coalition intervention. The coalition refused. The humans had warned them to stay away. They had given their word that only military targets would be hit. So far, despite the brutality of the campaign, human forces had not harmed a single Krath civilian. The Krath tried to negotiate. Earth refused to respond. The time for talking was over. Now was the time for lessons. In the shadows of the campaign, the freed war criminals worked. Each one brought their expertise. Chemical weapons specialists made sure Krath military bases became uninhabitable. Biological warfare experts released agents that disabled equipment but did not harm people. Nuclear weapons designers calculated exactly how much radiation would scare the Krath without killing civilians. They were monsters. Every one of them. They had done terrible things in Earth's old wars, but now they used their knowledge surgically, precisely, showing the Krath what humans could do, while proving they could control themselves. This is the difference between us and them, Volkov explained to the coalition observers. The Krath killed because they wanted to prove their strength. We kill because it is necessary to teach a lesson. They were cruel for cruelty's sake. We are cruel for a purpose. That makes us far more dangerous. The observers watched in horrified fascination. They were seeing something the galaxy had not witnessed in millennia. A species that understood war as art and science. A species that had refined destruction to a precise tool. And they were seeing that species hold itself back. Every human action was measured, calculated, designed to break the Krath military without slaughtering civilians. It would have been easier to just destroy everything. Faster, simpler. But humans had learned the hard way that quick victories meant nothing. Real victory meant making the enemy understand why they lost, making them change, making sure they never made the same mistake again. The Krath Dominion was learning. Every day more soldiers deserted. More civilians protested. More leaders called for surrender. The proud warrior race was discovering that there were species in the galaxy that understood war far better than they did. And those species had chosen peace, not because they were weak, but because they knew too well the cost of strength. The war entered its 5th week and something changed. The humans began sending Krath soldiers home. At first, the Krath military thought it was a trap. Human forces captured a forward base on Krath 4, taking 300 prisoners. The prisoners expected execution, torture, experimentation. Instead, human medical personnel arrived. They treated the wounded Krath, set broken limbs, removed shrapnel, administered medicine, the same level of care they would give to their own people. The Krath prisoners could not understand it. Why? One Krath soldier asked through his translator. He had lost an arm in the battle. Human surgeons had stabilized him and stopped the bleeding. They were preparing to fit him with a prosthetic. Why heal me? I would have killed you. The human doctor looked at him. Her name was Jennifer Wu. She had volunteered for this assignment specifically. Because that's what we do, she said simply. We're healers. But we killed your healers. Yes, you did. And that's why you're going home. You need to tell everyone what we could have done to you. What we chose not to do. The 300 Krath prisoners were loaded onto transport ships. They were given food, medical supplies, comfortable quarters. Then they were sent home with a single message. This is what mercy looks like. Remember it. When the prisoners returned to the Krath Dominion, they told their stories. They had been treated better by humans than by their own military. They had been healed by the same species whose healers the Krath had murdered. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. General Volkov called it weaponized compassion. The Krath think they're warriors, he explained to his officers. They believe in strength and dominance, but they've never encountered an enemy who could destroy them and chooses not to. Every soldier we heal and send home carries that knowledge. They know we held their lives in our hands. They know we gave those lives back. He smiled coldly. And that's more terrifying than any weapon. The strategy worked. More Krath soldiers surrendered. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because they wanted to be captured by humans. They wanted to be treated with dignity. They wanted to go home and tell others what they had seen. The Krath leadership tried to suppress the stories. They executed returning prisoners as traitors. But that only made things worse. Krath citizens began to question their government. If their own leaders would kill soldiers for being captured, but humans would heal those same soldiers, who were the real monsters? Protests erupted across the Krath Dominion, not in support of humanity, but in opposition to their own government. The war had turned inward. Meanwhile, human forces continued their methodical destruction of Krath military capacity. But they also did something unexpected. In systems they controlled, they began rebuilding infrastructure. Humans repaired power plants they had disabled. They restored water treatment facilities. They fixed communication networks. Coalition observers were baffled. Why rebuild? The Vreni ambassador asked. You are still at war. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship looking at the star map. Because we're not here to destroy the Krath. We're here to teach them. They need to see what they could have done to the hospital. They need to understand the choice they made. On captured worlds, human engineers worked alongside Krath civilians. They showed them how the attacks had been surgical, precise, designed to disable without killing. They demonstrated that every target had been chosen carefully to minimize casualties. We could have bombed your cities, one human engineer told a group of Krath workers. We could have poisoned your water. We could have released plagues. We have all those weapons. We chose not to use them. Your leaders made a different choice at Refuge 7. The message spread. The Krath population began to understand. Their government had killed helpless patients and broadcast it proudly. Humans had dismantled their military but spared civilians. The contrast was stark. General Volkov implemented the next phase. Human forces began broadcasting educational programs into Krath space. Not propaganda, just facts. Human history. The wars Earth had fought. The weapons they had used. The billions who had died. We want them to understand, Volkov told his staff. We're not special. We're not superior. We're just a species that went too far and learned from it. The Krath need to have that same moment of understanding. Otherwise, this war accomplishes nothing. The program showed footage from Earth's old wars. The nuclear devastation, the chemical weapon casualties, the biological plagues, the orbital bombardments. Every horror humanity had inflicted on itself. Then they showed what came after. The peace, the healing, the rebuilding, the choice to become better. This is our history, the narration explained. We became healers because we knew what it meant to destroy. We chose mercy because we understood cruelty. We saved lives because we had taken so many. The galaxy gave us a chance to be better. Your leaders took that chance away when they attacked Refuge 7. The effect was profound. Krath citizens watched and saw themselves, a warrior race that glorified strength, that believed in domination, that thought mercy was weakness. They saw where that path led: total destruction, self-annihilation, the end of civilization, and they saw humans offering them a different path, not through words, through actions, by showing them mercy when they deserved none, by healing them when it would be easier to kill, by rebuilding when destruction would be simpler. The Krath military command fractured. Half the generals wanted to continue fighting. They believed they could still win. The other half wanted peace. They had seen their worlds occupied by humans who fed their people and fixed their infrastructure. They had seen their soldiers returned home healthy and whole. The debate became a crisis when 3 Krath admirals defected to human forces. They did not surrender. They asked for asylum. They explained that they could not serve a government that would murder healers. We were wrong, Admiral Thekvor announced in a public broadcast. We believed strength meant the willingness to be cruel. We thought mercy was weakness. The humans have shown us the truth. Real strength is having the power to destroy and choosing not to. Real courage is showing mercy to an enemy that deserves none. The Krath homeworld erupted in chaos. The government tried to maintain control, but the military was collapsing from within. Soldiers refused orders. Officers resigned. Entire fleets declared neutrality. And through it all, humans continued their campaign, methodical, unstoppable, merciful in victory but ruthless in purpose. They were proving a point with every action. We could be monsters. We choose not to be. Learn from our choice. Coalition observers compiled their reports. They documented everything. The precision strikes, the rebuilt infrastructure, the healed prisoners, the psychological warfare, the weaponized compassion. They are fighting a war, the Vreni observer wrote. But the battlefield is not space. It is the Krath mind. They are trying to change an entire species' understanding of strength and mercy, and they are succeeding. On Earth, President Santos addressed the planet again. To our citizens, the war continues. But we are winning, not through destruction, but through demonstration. The Krath are learning what we learned centuries ago. That civilization is a choice. That mercy is strength. that the willingness to heal is more powerful than the ability to harm. She paused, her expression sad. We wish we could have taught this lesson differently. We wish Refuge 7 had never happened. But it did. And now we must ensure it never happens again. Not just to humans. To anyone. In Krath space, the siege of the homeworld began. Not an attack, a siege. Human ships surrounded the planet. They did not fire. They did not threaten. They just waited. Krath leadership could see the human fleet, could see the weapons that could destroy their world in minutes, could understand that those weapons would not be used unless absolutely necessary. The message was clear. Surrender, learn, change, or force us to do what we desperately do not want to do. General Volkov stood on his bridge, watching the Krath homeworld on the view screen. His expression was tired, old. He had done terrible things in his life. He had been imprisoned for them. But now in this moment he was using his knowledge to save lives, to teach, to show the Krath that there was another way. They killed our healers, he said quietly. So we showed them what healers really are. Not people who can't fight, people who choose not to. And that choice is what makes us civilized. The siege continued, and the galaxy watched as humanity demonstrated the most powerful weapon they possessed. Not nuclear bombs, not biological agents, not chemical weapons. The power to forgive, the strength to show mercy, the courage to teach rather than destroy. The Krath were learning, and the lesson would change them forever. The surrender came on day 47. The Krath Prime Minister appeared on every screen in the Dominion. He looked old, tired, defeated, not by weapons but by understanding. To the human forces, he began. His voice shook. To the Galactic Coalition, to our own people. The Krath Dominion surrenders unconditionally. We have committed acts that violate every principle of civilization. We murdered healers. We killed patients. We broadcast our crimes as if they were victories. We were wrong. He paused, struggling with the words. For a warrior race, surrender was shame beyond measure. But there was something worse than shame. There was understanding what they had become. The humans could have destroyed us, he continued. They had the weapons. They had the opportunity. Instead, they showed us mercy. They healed our soldiers. They rebuilt our worlds. They taught us the difference between strength and cruelty. We beg forgiveness. We beg for the chance to learn, to become better, as humanity did. The transmission ended. Admiral Rodriguez received the surrender from the bridge of her flagship. She felt no triumph, no joy, just exhaustion. She had spent 7 weeks watching her people fight a war they never wanted, watching them use skills they had prayed to forget, watching them become monsters again, even in service of a righteous cause. Send the response, she ordered. Surrender accepted. All Krath military forces are to stand down immediately. Coalition peacekeepers will arrive within 72 hours. Human forces will begin withdrawal. The Krath leadership will face trial for war crimes. Justice will be served. The message went out. Across 17 systems, Krath ships powered down their weapons. Soldiers laid down their arms. A war that should have lasted years was over in 47 days. But the real work was just beginning. The Galactic Coalition convened an emergency tribunal. The location was symbolic. Not on a coalition world, on Refuge 7. In the ruins of the hospital the Krath had destroyed. The site had been cleared, but the scars remained. Broken walls, scorched earth. Mass graves. The Krath leaders were brought to stand trial, not by humans, by the coalition. Earth insisted on this. Justice had to be impartial. The evidence was overwhelming. Video footage, survivor testimony, casualty reports. The verdict took only 3 days. Guilty of war crimes, guilty of crimes against civilization, guilty of attacking healers in violation of the oldest galactic law. The sentences were severe. Life imprisonment for those who gave the orders. Exile for those who carried them out. The Krath Dominion was placed under coalition supervision for 50 years. They would be rebuilt, re-educated, taught the values they had abandoned, and the humans would help them do it. That was the part that shocked the galaxy. After everything, humans volunteered to help rebuild the Krath civilization. Medical ships returned to Krath space, not warships. Hospital vessels, the same kind that had served at Refuge 7, the same kind the Krath had destroyed. Why? The Vreni ambassador asked Admiral Rodriguez. After what they did, why help them? Rodriguez looked at the ruins around them. The memorial service was being prepared. Names were being carved into stone. 2,000 human medical personnel. 15,000 patients from a dozen species, all dead because of Krath cruelty. Because that's who we are, Rodriguez said quietly. We're healers. Even when we become warriors, we remain healers. We fought this war to teach a lesson. The lesson is incomplete unless we show them how to rebuild, how to be better, how to choose mercy. She turned to face the ambassador. Her eyes were haunted. And because we remember what it was like when we were the ones who needed that lesson. Someone gave us a chance. The coalition welcomed us despite our history. Now we pass that chance forward. The memorial was completed. A massive wall of black stone with names in white letters. Every victim was listed, human and alien, doctor and patient, adult and child. At the top, carved in letters that caught the light, was a simple phrase, "They healed." We remember, never again. The dedication ceremony was attended by representatives from every coalition species. The Krath sent delegates too. They knelt before the wall, some wept. Others stood in silent shame. All of them understood what they had destroyed. Not just lives, hope, innocence, trust. President Santos gave the main address. These people died doing what they loved, healing, saving lives, showing compassion to those in need. They did not die as warriors. They died as healers. That is how they should be remembered. She paused, looking at the Krath delegates. But their deaths taught the galaxy something. That healing is not weakness. That mercy is not surrender. That those who save lives are protected by those who can take them. The Krath learned this lesson at terrible cost. Now we ensure no one ever forgets it. The coalition passed the refuge accords within a week. New laws, new protections. Any attack on medical personnel would be met with immediate and overwhelming response. Not sanctions. Not diplomatic pressure. Military action. By all coalition forces. Together. And humanity would lead that response. Earth was given a new role in the coalition. Protector of healers. Guardian of the innocent. The species that understood war well enough to prevent it. But there remained one final task. The war criminals who had been awakened. The monsters who had helped win the war. What would happen to them? General Volkov stood in the lunar vault once more. The cryogenic pods were being prepared. Some of the awakened would return to sleep. Their crimes had been too great. Their knowledge too dangerous. But others would be offered a choice. Admiral Rodriguez came to speak with him personally. You helped us win, she said. You showed the Krath what we could become. What we chose not to be. The president is offering pardons to those who want them. Volkov was quiet for a long time. And do what? Return to society? Pretend we're not what we are? No. Use what you know to prevent others from making our mistakes. Teach at the military academy. Consult on ethics. Help the next generation understand why we fight so hard to avoid fighting. Volkov laughed bitterly. You want monsters to teach children about morality? I want people who understand the cost to teach others about the price. You know what happens when civilization fails. You lived it, caused it, regretted it. That knowledge has value. In the end, 15 of the awakened accepted pardons. They would serve humanity in new ways. Teaching, warning, showing the next generation what they must never become. The others chose to return to sleep. They had done their part. That was enough. The human fleet returned to Earth. Victory parades were held in major cities. People celebrated, but the celebrations were muted, thoughtful. Humanity had won a war, but they had also proven they could still become what they feared. The weapons still existed. The knowledge remained. The capacity for destruction had not disappeared. We won, President Santos said in her final address about the war. But victory does not mean we were right to fight. It means we were right to stop the Krath from continuing. There is a difference. She looked directly at the camera. We became healers 50 years ago because we nearly destroyed ourselves. This war reminded us why that choice was necessary. We can be warriors. We can be monsters. We can be destroyers. But we choose to be healers. Not because we cannot fight. Because we understand what fighting costs. The ESS Retribution was decommissioned. It would return to storage. Mothballed until needed again. Hopefully never. The other warships followed. One by one they disappeared back into their hidden stations. Their weapons were secured. Their crews returned to civilian life. Admiral Rodriguez stood in front of the memorial one last time before returning to Earth. She read the names. So many names. People who had just wanted to help. Who had dedicated their lives to healing. Who had died for that choice. We avenged you, she whispered. But that doesn't bring you back. Nothing can bring you back. So instead we made sure this never happens again. To anyone. That's all we can do. Remember, teach, prevent. She placed her hand on the wall. The stone was cold, permanent, eternal. You were healers. You will always be healers. And because of you, the galaxy understands what that means now. Not weakness. Not surrender. Not submission. Strength. The strength to help instead of hurt. The courage to heal instead of harm. The wisdom to choose life over death. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the wall caught the sunlight. The names glowed white against black stone. A reminder. A warning. A promise. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Attack healers and you face not just military might. You face a species that understands war so well they abandoned it. A species that knows how to fight precisely because they choose not to. A species that will teach you even if the lesson requires breaking you first. Humanity had gone to war. And they had won. But more importantly, they had proven why they had become healers in the first place. Not from weakness. From wisdom. From understanding. From the hard-earned knowledge that mercy is the ultimate expression of strength. The Krath would rebuild. They would learn. They would change. And humanity would help them do it. Because that was what healers did. Even when they became warriors. Even when they unleashed their worst. They remained at their core people who wanted to save lives. That was humanity's true power. Not the weapons they could build. Not the wars they could fight. But the choice they made every single day. The choice to heal instead of harm. To build instead of destroy. To teach